updates here. There you go. I think some update on my computer did this. Well, it's not sure it's much better. All right, do your introductions. Hey, YouTubers. I think it's better, but it's still lagging badly, and I don't know why. Oh, so frustrating. Anyway, welcome, guys. Good. TikTokers are saying where they're from. You Discordians, YouTubers, we got everybody saying where we're from while we're waiting. Hello, TikTokers. YouTube, it is what it is at this point. I don't know why it's being bad right now. I can run Onyx later, though it shouldn't really matter. Hey, guys. Anyway, I get stressed when this happens, when I have computer issues. This is The Live, Maria. Yep. So welcome, guys. Welcome, everybody. I'm John Aravosis here in Washington, D.C. We are going to talk today about the war in Iran and Israel. We're also going to do an update about Ukraine at the end. I don't want to ignore the war in Ukraine, but this is the big story. I mean, this is the big story here. The YouTube's, well, I think it's my computer. Although it's only doing it on YouTube, which is a little weird, but I think my computer's going slow. All right, people, YouTube is looking better for Jordan says. Okay. All right. See, on my end, I can tell it's going slowly, but as long as it's not, I can tell it's lagging on my end. Nothing we can do about it. All right, mods or anybody else on YouTube, anybody who talks about it's lagging, just tell them we know and shut them down because it's going to keep distracting me. I know it. There's nothing I can do. Yeah. All right. Welcome, guys. Do I honestly see the UK and the US being involved? Yes. Here's what's going on. So we're going to talk about Iran. It's obviously the big topic. I think things got a lot more serious today. We're not at war yet, so to speak. Just because we bomb Iran doesn't mean we're going to be at war necessarily. Actually, this reminds me, very funny. I do think it was funny, actually. I went to Georgetown Graduate School. I went there for law school, and I also went there for graduate school. I have my master's in foreign service from Georgetown and international public policy, like international relations. And my friend Marion, who joins us a lot, she may watch this tonight. Marion was in one of our classes, and it's called a capstone class. It's like the big class you have to take, everybody has to take to cap our whole learning experience. So this is graduate school international relations. And one of the professors was there, and he had some discussion on war and peace and some discussion about, thank you, Cindy, for the gift. Some discussion in our class at Georgetown about, I don't know whether it was how you stop countries from going to war or something like that. And my friend Marion said, well, before we talk about war and peace, shouldn't we have definitions of war and peace? And he goes, what do you mean? This is a Georgetown professor. And Marion, like me, was a joint law student. I did a joint law degree and master's at Georgetown in foreign service. And Mary was doing the same thing. And she goes, I'm paraphrasing, but she goes, before we talk about war and peace in this class, shouldn't we define war and peace? And the professor's like, what do you mean? She goes, well, how do you define war? Is it war? Let's say like today, is it war if you go and bomb an Iranian nuclear reactor? Is it war if the U.S. helps shoot down incoming Iranian missiles? Are we at war, right? I mean, if we bomb their reactor, we might be. If we shoot down missiles coming at Israel, are we at war? Like we said, well, the professor just looked at her. Madeleine Albright, the best part was Madeleine Albright was doing the class. Madeleine was our professor there. Madeleine ended up going on to be Bill Clinton's Secretary of State, UN ambassador as well. And Madeleine was one of my professors too, but I wasn't in this class with them. And got very upset at Mary. But anyway, it was a very interesting question about the definition of war. I raised that because when we're talking about Iran, it's a very interesting question because, for example, like I said, the U.S. has been reportedly helping Israel shoot down missiles coming in. That has not put us at war with Iran, and they haven't gone after us. We're not going after them. If we were to blow up Iran's uranium refinement, enrichment center facility, would we be at war? It would be an act of war. I don't know whether we would be at war. That's an interesting question. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Adventurers, for the gifts, guys. Thank you, Ava. And I really mean this because I'm not sure anymore what you define as war. The U.S. has never officially been at war, I believe, since World War II. That was the last official war, I think, that the U.S. has been in. Now, from a U.S. constitutional perspective, it causes problems because people asked me, I think in the show last night, they said, well, doesn't the Congress have to approve war? Yeah, the Senate does, yeah. The Senate goes to war. Well, U.S. presidents haven't gone to war since World War II. but they've done lots of military actions. The Iraq War was not a war. The second Iraq War was not a war. The Afghan War was not a war. It was a war, obviously, but officially it wasn't. Anyway, my point is, and we'll get to the substance now. If the U.S. gets involved and starts bombing this enrichment facility of Iran's, thank you, Norway, for the gift, that still doesn't mean we will be at war with Iran. Iran may respond by shooting a bunch of missiles at a U.S. base, and they may stop. And then it depends what the U.S. does next, right? So you can get into kind of a tit for tat, which the U.S. has gotten into a lot in the past, right? Just kind of one missile. In any case, let's get into this. So the situation with Iran, we are closer to war, if I should use the phrase. We are closer to military action today than we were yesterday, I think. Trump is clearly doing one thing I would say Trump is doing. Donald Trump is preparing. Trump wants a negotiated settlement. He wants a deal. Keep the gifts coming on TikTok, by the way, and YouTube. I do this for a living. Your gifts pay the bills, so thank you guys for the gifts. Trump wants a deal with Iran about their nuclear program. The big issue with Iran is, in order to have nuclear weapons, among other things, you have to have the uranium. The uranium is the explosive material, so to speak, or material that you explode, at least, that causes a nuclear explosion. You have to have very pure uranium for it to blow up. It needs to be like over 90% pure. Well, Iran has some facilities that can purify uranium to like 20% or maybe even 40%. No, it's 60%. I'm sorry, 60%. No, 20%. But then there's a second facility that can go 60% and higher. Now, the first facility they're worried about, the second one they're really worried about, because that's the one that really Iran probably will use. Thank you. Who's the gift there? Thank you, Kim, for the gift. That's the one that Iran will probably use to create enough uranium to create a bomb. That second facility is called Fodro, like F-O-D-R-O or R-O-W. It is buried deep in a mountain. Israel's weapons probably cannot reach it. Now, can Israel hit it with a cyber attack? Maybe. Can Israel bribe some officials to go in there and cause trouble? Maybe, right? But at least using bombs, Israel can't reach it. The only people who have a bomb that can reach potentially this uranium enrichment facility of Iran's is the United States. We have a 30,000-pound bomb. It's literally a bomb that's 30,000 pounds. What's it called? The MOP. I'm already forgetting. I was trying to tell you guys. I wrote it down. A massive ordnance penetrator. It also has like a name like GBU something or other, or GUB. I'm going to get the name wrong, but it's a bunker buster bomb. It's a super large bomb that burrows into the ground and can destroy something, 300 feet in, 100 meters deep. Not only are the Americans the only people who have the bomb, we've not given it to anybody else. We are the only people that have a plane. Well, I don't know if we're the only people, but certainly Israel does not have a plane that can deliver this bomb because it's too heavy. The U.S. does. We use B-2 bombers, right? The big, cool black planes to drop it. So that's the issue as to what difficulty Israel will have trying to destroy or set back Iran's nuclear program, because the most important parts of their program are buried deep in the mountain. Thank you, Tarad. Thank you, Succeed. The second issue is, that's why Israel would like the U.S. to get involved, because we're the ones that have the bomb that can reach deep inside the mountain. So that's kind of the issue as to why the U.S. would or wouldn't get involved, et cetera. So where things stand now, Trump last night, well, let's go to a couple days ago. Israel invades, I think it was Thursday night in America, Friday in Europe and in Israel. Thank you for the gift there. Succeed. Israel attacks Iran, decides they're going to go after the nuclear facilities. We've now had 5 days of war. It's a war between Israel and Iran. Initially, the U.S. said, we had nothing to do with it. Thank you, Tiptoe, for the gift. Said, we had nothing to do with it. Remember, Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, was like, Israel's doing this. We're not doing it, right? Then the next morning, Trump tweeted and said, like, yeah, Israel, go. He basically endorsed the war. And we were like, well, that's interesting. Well, as time goes on, the Israelis keep putting out messages that like Trump is supportive, but then the White House is like, Trump kept vacillating. It's not clear why. He kept vacillating. He kept kind of being supportive, not supportive of the war. The U.S. won't get involved. The U.S. might get involved. Supposedly over the weekend, we found out that the Israelis were going to they were going to take out the Iranian leader, but then Trump forced them not to. And then later, the Israelis said, that's not. Then later in Israeli circles, that's not true. He didn't stop us. So Trump, I think, is kind of waffling a bit here. He likes what Israel's doing, but at the same time, I would say, legitimately worried, like we all are, as to what does this war become? Can we win if we get into this war? Because these are things you have to. If you're going to get into a war, you've got to worry about, can I win? Can I achieve my goals? Thank you for the Pharaoh there, Marcia. Thank you, Melanie. Can I achieve my goals? And what will it cost to achieve my goals, right? How many men will I lose? How many planes will I lose? How much money? How much time will it take? And what's the cost to the region, right? Is the region going to blow up into a regional war? Is somebody, if we overthrow the Iranian government, is somebody crazier going to take over, right? I mean, these are things you have to worry about if you're thinking of going to war. Thank you, Terry. So takes us to last night. Trump is in Canada at the G7 summit. G7, 7 of the most advanced democracies are there. And Trump's at the G7 summit. And Trump, I'm trying to think if he tweeted when he was there. I think this all happened simultaneously. Trump suddenly leaves early. The summit was going on until today. Trump announces he's leaving, going back to Washington to deal with Iran. At the same time, Trump tweets that basically that Iran should have taken the deal he offered them because he was negotiating with Iran. For 60 days, Trump was negotiating with Iran to get rid of the nuclear weapons program. And Iran was dragging their feet, and Trump gave them 60 days. It went over 60 days. Iran didn't agree. Trump tweets last night and says, I gave Iran every chance. They didn't take it. They should have agreed. And he then says the Iranians better evacuate Tehran now, meaning America's going to attack Tehran. And everyone was like, whoa, okay, that's news. Trump comes back to Washington, has a National Security Council meeting today where they discuss attacking Iran. Lots of stories in the press today in America saying the Trump administration is considering attacking Iran. What I think is going on is, I guess, two things. One, Trump is absolutely positively thinking of attacking Iran. That's true. That's absolutely true. But he is also trying to scare the heck out of Iran to force them to compromise in the negotiations and give up their weapon or give up their weapons program, basically the uranium enrichment, right? I think so. What's going on? But the problem here is I'm not convinced that Trump is bluffing. That's the issue. I think for sure what's going on right now is Trump is trying to scare Iran. We moved a lot of military assets. We're moving another aircraft carrier. What is it? Strike Force or Strike Group. Callum knows the names here, but a whole bunch of ships we're moving in additional. We're moving a bunch of refueling planes, which you already did to Europe. And the few refueling planes could be used for B-2 bombers and things, right? For the stealth bombers. All of that is to scare Iran, but it's also possibly to be used if Iran doesn't agree. I think especially since last night, I don't think this is just Donald Trump putting on an act. I think from last night to today, the needle moved much closer to the U.S. going to war, or maybe going to war. I shouldn't keep using that phrase, but the U.S. bombing Iran, bombing the nuclear enrichment facilities. I think we got much closer today. I think Trump is giving the Iranians one last chance to negotiate, but I suspect, and again, judging by Trump's tweets, what we're hearing in the news, I get the sense that the Iranians are not being very responsive, basically, to Trump's request. That's my thought. So yeah, I think we're closer. I don't think, Shari says the UK has moved troops in the region. I heard that as well. In the next 24 to 48 hours, something could happen. Yeah. Now, I will say this. This is not the first time that the U.S. has gotten involved militarily in this region or somewhere in the world. Just because we do doesn't mean the sky falls, right? Right? I mean, any of you who are worried, well, we were fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for 20 years. You were all fine, right? I mean, unless you lived in Iraq or Afghanistan, you were fine. So I don't think you should be in a panic about this necessarily. This is not the first time we've maybe gone to war. So do not worry in that sense. Secondly, the Russians and the Chinese. People say, what about Russia and China? They're friends of Iran. Have you heard much from Russia and China? Oh, I'm going to pull this up. Russia today, Russia's UN ambassador gave a speech, or what, not even a speech, was doing questions in front of the media. And he was asked about Israel attacking Iran and the U.S. getting involved. Now, typically, what would you have expected the Russians to say, right? Typically, you'd expect the Russians to be, bombastic, America, better not, because keep in mind, Russia's got a treaty with Iran. They signed like some kind of friendship defense treaty. So Russia should be helping Iran. First point, Israel's been bombing Iran since last Thursday. Have you heard anything from the Russians? Right? What have you heard? You haven't heard the Russians say, we're invoking our defense treaty and Israel better watch it. Nothing, right? Today, I'm going to read you what the Russians said, Russian UN ambassador. And again, typically the Russians would really tell, this is their ally. They've got a treaty with this ally, right? I mean, listen to this. Reset the modem and router. Okay. Do you mean just reboot it or what? Deboche. I'm going to keep doing this, but maybe just put the comment in there. And one of the mods remind me what they say. So let me read you what the Russian UN ambassador said about if the U.S. gets involved. On whether the U.S. will be involved militarily, I hope not. I hope not. And President Trump was speaking about it. He conditioned his non-involvement on non-attacks by Iran on the U.S. military facilities. I hope that will stay that way. We have enough. We have enough confrontation already. That's it from the Russians. That's the big Russian statement about whether the U.S. goes to war with Iran. They hope not. We have enough confrontation already. That is the weakest statement I have ever heard from the Russians in my lifetime. I have never heard the Russians give that weak a statement. That is incredibly weak. Put that in the context of the last 5 days that Israel has been attacking Iran, Russia's big ally. The Russians have said nothing. And by the way, the Chinese haven't said much easier. So at this point, now that does not mean that Russia couldn't get involved, right? But Russia is pretty bogged down in Ukraine. So, let's see. But I just thought that was very interesting because somebody asked about Russia. I just thought it was very interesting about Russia. So let me go through. I'm going to go. Oh yeah. So the Trump comes back. They have the National Security Council meeting today. That's the big meeting in the White House where Defense Secretary, CIA Director, everyone all the national security types get together, and they're basically, we won't know the details now, but they're talking about Iran, whether we go to war or whether we go to bombing, I should say, right, with Iran. Right before the meeting, what happens? The Iranians put out a statement, and this is from the Iran Armed Forces chief. I'm going to guess this is the new guy because Israel's killed, I think, 2 of them at this point. Abdul Rahman Mousavi warns residents of Haifa, Israel, and Tel Aviv, Israel, to evacuate because there will be a punitive operation against them. Basically, right before this meeting at the White House, the Iranian government, the head of the military, came out and said that Iran was going to attack Israel and they were going to attack the civilians in Israel, and that Israel should abandon 2 of its largest cities, Tel Aviv and Haifa, because the Iranians were going to attack civilians. Here's the problem with that. And I say this is politically stupid because Trump is going into his National Security Council meeting. Okay. This came right before. Trump goes into this meeting, and what does he hear? And what do all the attendees hear? Iran threatening to wipe out entire Israeli cities of civilians. That's not good. Second of all, as I said, it happened right before the meeting. So it's the first thing they're hearing going into the meeting. That's not good. Third thing that happened, the reason the Iranians said this today that they were going to wipe out Haifa and Tel Aviv and people should evacuate, is because Trump said something similar last night about Tehran, right? Last night, Trump said to the Iranians, evacuate Tehran. So the Iranians responded to him and said, Israel, you evacuate Tel Aviv and Haifa. If you're Trump, he's not dumb, so to speak. If you're Trump, you're going to figure out that Iran said this as a comeback to you. Iran did it as a screw you, Donald Trump, is why Iran said that. That's, oh, hey, studio in Haifa. Don't mean to scare you, but you already know the news. Right? But so the Iranians said this as a screw you to Donald Trump. That's not great news for Trump going into a meeting where he's trying to decide if he's going to launch military action against the Iranians. I don't think it's very smart. In any case, what else will we have here? Let me see. Iran has prepared missiles and other military equipment for strikes on U.S. bases in the Middle East should the U.S. join Israel's war. Israel claims to have killed another senior Iranian commander. Basically, this is the wartime chief of staff who took over for the other wartime chief of staff that Israel killed a couple days ago. They killed his replacement too today. Israeli airstrikes achieved direct impacts on the underground area of the Natanz nuclear site. This is an uranium enrichment facility. It's the less important. There's like two important ones, at least. There's the super important one, Fodro. That's the one that's buried really deep. Thank you, Randy Fred. Thanks for the gifts, guys. Keep them coming, please. That's the Randy Fred. Randy Fred. I'm like looking at names here and trying to think. Fodro is the really serious facility that's very deep that we need to take out, but we need the U.S. bombs to do. Natanz is the other facility, still important, but easier to cause damage. So the report today is that, where are we here? Israel achieved direct impacts on the underground area of the Natanz nuclear site. The United Nations chief nuclear monitor said on Tuesday, based on new satellite images, this indicates more serious damage than previous assessment done on Friday. So that's good news, because I would say the quicker that Iran's nuclear program gets damaged and set back, the quicker perhaps we can end this conflict. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Dablista. Iran launched another missile and drone salvo against Israel today, again targeting Tel Aviv and Haifa. Israel intercepted many of them. Thousands are fleeing northern Tehran as evacuation orders are issued near key installations, state TV, hospitals, oil refineries, amid missile threats and disruptions to fuel and communications. Also, internet services across Iran are suffering severe disruptions, according to experts and Iranians who say the government is likely restricting access, to limit the spread of information about strikes and or fear of Israeli attacks. The German chancellor today, which was interesting, Germany's head of state said, or head, I don't know what you call it. The chancellor, he's the president, but he's not the president, the prime minister kind of Germany. But their leader said today that if Iran does not back down, the complete destruction of its nuclear program will be on the table. That struck me as very interesting. Thank you for that gift there, adventurers. Appreciate it. Having a key ally come in, and boy, what a difference an election makes, because Schultz, the guy before him, I don't know whether Schultz would or wouldn't have said this, right? But this was very interesting. Very interesting. So a little more here. Iran. So Iran wants a ceasefire and negotiations. Sorry, Game Legend said, will this cause World War III? Nope. And we're not close to it either. Thank you for the question, Game Legend. I always have a policy where if people, YouTube has a special feature where you can pay for questions. So if anybody pays for a question, I answer it immediately because that's very generous of them. So quick sip of water. So this is not the first time the U.S. will have gotten involved in military action. We've gotten involved in military action a lot. We got involved in long wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. They didn't go well, but they also didn't spin out of control, right? The whole region wasn't engulfed in war. Our allies didn't, right? I mean, it wasn't, oh my God. Even if you lived in America, if you're a soldier, it sucked, obviously. But meaning for regular Americans, it didn't make a difference. So there is no reason to believe this would be any different necessarily, right? I don't know why this war or series of attacks would be any more dangerous for any of you than any of the previous ones we've had. And the previous ones have not been. Obviously, if you live in Israel, it's different if you live in the region. But for anybody else other than our forces, right? So no. And World War III means typically the concept of World War III. Thank you for the North Star. Who's got the North Star? The North Star is a very nice gift. Tiptoe, thank you. That's a very nice gift. Appreciate that. Typically when you say World War III, you mean the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans. As I just read from the Russians aren't doing much of anything. So not too worried about the Russians. The Chinese have been laying low as well. And also China, this is still not China's area of interest. It's Russia's, but it's not China's backyard. And Russia has been, Russia's been kind of non-existent the last 5 days. So, they've got an interest. They can cause trouble, but they've been so not a factor at this point. I don't think it's the calm before the storm. I think it's the calm before the calm. If Russia was going to cause trouble, they would already be talking and getting angry. And look at Russia and Ukraine. Russia threatens to have a nuclear war 3 times a week with us over Ukraine. Now, they're not saying anything practically about what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, Russia is not exactly shy when it's preparing to do something nasty, right? Usually the government's pretty vocal about it. They're not being vocal this time at all. Sorry, this is an important story, though. This is an important one. So Iran, the Iranian government sort of put out via U.S. channels, it said that it wanted an immediate ceasefire and the resumption of negotiations with Washington. So Iran's putting out the message that they want to negotiate again. Let's have a ceasefire. The problem with that is, why? Why would Israel have a ceasefire? If you're Israel, you're getting attacked. Some people are dying. More are dying in Iran, but some are dying in Israel. Way more infrastructure is getting destroyed in Iran and damaged. Israel, not really. I mean, buildings are getting hit and stuff, sure. But generally speaking, Israel is not getting damaged at all like Iran is getting damaged. If in terms of who needs the war to stop, Iran needs the war to stop. Israel does not today. So for Iran to say, let's have a ceasefire, benefits Iran. It doesn't benefit Israel. For Iran to say, let's have a ceasefire, they better offer something good. Simply saying we'll return to the negotiations, well, that's not good. Iran was already negotiating with Trump and didn't do anything about it. They were negotiating. They were dragging their feet. Trump gave them 60 days. 60 days had, by the time Israel attacked, 60 days had already passed. Iran wasn't negotiating in good faith. So for Iran to last week not negotiate in good faith, but this week say, oh, this time we'll negotiate in good faith, I don't think that's enough. I don't think that should be enough for the U.S. I don't think that's enough for Israel. And the second point here, why do they need negotiations at all? Iran knows the U.S. position. Iran was in negotiations with the U.S. for 60 days. Iran knows the U.S. position. They don't need to negotiate it. They've already tried negotiating it. Trump told them what he wants. Iran, all they have to do to stop the war simply has to say, Trump, we agree with you. Your position's fine. We're going to stop enriching uranium. That's it. That's it. They don't have to give up their nuclear program. They can still have nuclear plants and everything. They just can't enrich uranium, which is how you make a bomb. That's it. So this is a problem. But the problem is they've been negotiating. Iran wasn't serious about it. Why should Israel, and frankly the U.S. at this point, take the finger off, or take the whatever the expression is, right? Sort of release their hold on Iran and let Iran build back up while they pretend to negotiate. Why? So for Iran at this point, they've got, and here's the other thing too. Where's the concession? Iran wants Israel to stop attacking. Iran needs to make a concession. I mean, that's the way it works. If you're losing a battle, you need to make a concession if you're going to say, hey, big guy, stop coming after me. Where's the concession from Iran? So I'm not convinced that Trump would agree to negotiations at this point. I know Israel won't, and I don't think they should, because you need an actual You need an actual concession from Iran, and they're not giving one. Let me look here. I think so. I'm looking here. That's enough on this. Let me say really quickly with regards to Ukraine, the Russians launched a massive attack on Ukraine overnight, 440 drones, 32 missiles, took down a residential building in Kyiv. I mean, horrific though, like the entire building collapsed, killed at least 19 people in the Ukrainian capital. Horrific attack yet again against a civilian target, which the Russians do repeatedly. Really horrible. Anyway, let's talk about this. So I think what's going on, and by the way, TikTokers, if you like my work, please follow me. I always forget to ask you guys to do that, but if you're following me on TikTok, I do this every night, Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern. And if there's any breaking news, I come on otherwise. So if we go to war with Iran, I'll definitely be going live anyway, but do follow me as well, because I do video updates throughout the day. But I think where we are right now is we are closer to bombing Iran today than we were yesterday, but we're not there yet. I think Trump really wants a deal with Iran. I think Trump really wants a negotiated deal. The problem is, I don't think Iran wants one. And I don't know that Iran is at the point yet that it acknowledges that the only way it's going to stop the war, thank you Natural, thank you Jetta, thank you Kari, thank you Big Hawk, is by ceasing its uranium enrichment, which is basically you make the uranium more pure and more pure, and you get it to a point that it can be used for a nuclear bomb. So there you go. Questions, comments, etc. Trump may change his mind. That's Dave just said Trump will change his mind again. That's the thing. It is entirely somebody mentioned this in the comments on TikTok during one of my one of my videos earlier today, but Trump waffles a lot. Trump's a taco, right? Trump always chickens out. Trump is always changing his mind. And he is. So is it possible that Trump just caves and doesn't, that Iran says no and Trump says, okay, we're going home? It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump did that. At this point, it's very dangerous if he does that, because Trump has already put the credibility of the president of the United States. I mean, Trump has already said that basically he is going to bomb this nuclear facility if Iran doesn't agree to get rid of it. I mean, he hasn't said it in exact words, but everyone believes that Trump, when he did all these tweets, was making clear that if Iran doesn't get rid of these facilities, the U.S. will take them out, and positioning all these troops and everything else. If he doesn't follow through, in other words, Iran says, screw you, America, we're keeping our nuclear stuff, right? If Trump doesn't follow through and try to get rid of the facility, this sends a message to everybody around the world that not only is Trump a taco, not only is Trump a waffler. Taco is the word that the Wall Street folks came up for Trump, saying Trump always caves. Trump always chickens out. Taco, because he's always flip-flopping on trade and tariffs and everything else. If he becomes a taco on foreign policy as well, that's really dangerous. It sends a message not just to Russia, but to China, especially, thank you, E, that if Donald Trump threatens to go to war, he doesn't really mean it. You don't want the Chinese to think that because of Taiwan. You really want the Chinese to think that if an American president says, don't you dare invade Taiwan, because we'll go to war, that the American president means it. So, anyway. The Iranians willing to talk came from a rather credible news guy that a bunch of the Iran experts I follow said this guy's Suleiman Maswadeh of Khan News. He is, I don't know who he is, but the defense experts I follow all said he was a really credible guy. And he's the one who reported that the Iranians were wanting an immediate ceasefire and they were willing to negotiate again. So I reported it to you guys because all the defense experts I know online find this guy credible. So no problem. User says, what do you think of user? Couldn't you come up with a better name? user says, what do you think of Iran saying they're going to have a big surprise tonight? There were reports of Iran threatening like a big attack tonight. I'm kidding you. It's just funny. User, when I got to like mention your name, that there were reports that Iran was going to do a big strike against Israel tonight. Maybe, there still is a question of how many missiles Iran has left, how many missile launchers they have left, which is a bigger question. His name, I'll tell you last time here, is Suleiman, Suleiman in English, Maswadeh. I'm gonna guess it's Maswadeh, Maswadeh. Google him, but he's on Twitter. I think he's Khan News, KANN_news. Iran did not pose an imminent nuclear threat. No. Lone Snorkeler said, did we know if Iran posed an imminent nuclear threat? No. Israel, and I've said this before, Israel, thank you, Lord Flash, for the gift. Israel went to war early. They did. I mean, again, I'm not sympathetic to Iran on this at all, but Israel did go to war early. Trump was still negotiating. Now, we had met Trump's deadline. Trump had given Iran 60 days. Thank you, Lone, for the gift. Thank you, Pierre. Trump had said 60 days, Iran, negotiate or else. 60 days had passed. But we were still meeting the Iranians on Sunday. The negotiations were not over. We had a meeting plan, a negotiation plan 2 days ago. Israel went and attacked anyway. I think that was wrong of Israel to do. Thank you, Jackie. Assuming Trump wasn't in cahoots with the Israelis, I don't know. Thank you, Kathy, for the gift on YouTube. So Iran was not ready to create a nuke. Iran was not building a nuke. But Iran has gotten a long part of the way towards being able to build a nuke. Meaning, I compare it, thank you, Cecil, thank you, Gen X. I compare it to, thank you, Sav, thank you, Marsha. I compare it to like in sci-fi shows when they're building the secret weapon and they've got all the parts of the puzzle and they're putting all the pieces. And then there's like one final piece that, and any, like I said, Stargate people know what I'm talking about. But there's like one final piece they've got to put in the weapon and it activates the weapon. Metaphorically, that's what Iran has been doing. Iran for years has been building up its capacity to make a nuke. They even have been, oh, thank you for the helmet, Helion. That's a very generous gift. I know that one. Thank you for that. They even have been building up the higher quality nuclear fuel, the uranium. The inspectors from the United Nations found uranium residue that was 83% pure. That's very bad. 90% is being able to make a nuclear bomb. So 83%, very bad. The Iranians said, oh, it was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake. It was a mistake that you got caught. So the issue has been for years, Iran, thank you, Gen Xer, has been, and this is actually an important question because some of the thing that I've gotten a lot on TikTok in my videos is people saying, I don't believe that Iran could build a nuke because they've been saying for years that Iran was really close to building a nuke. Iran has been very close to building a nuke for years, but they've been holding off because, like I said, metaphorically, like that science fiction device where they've got all the pieces together and they've got one last piece to put on the device that turns it on. The Iranians have been waiting to put the last piece because they know if they do, America and Israel will invade. That's why they haven't done it. So it is not a case of this doesn't make sense. 5 years ago, they said Iran could build a nuclear weapon in a month or 6 months or whatever. It's been more than 6 months. That's because Iran has not tried to finish the weapon. That's the issue. Why not? Because they're afraid that Israel and America will invade if they do. That's why I say what Israel did was early. I don't think it was needed yet, but, and this is an important talk. I will mention Tulsi. That's a good point. Yeah, I was going to mention her. She was on my list, but I sort of stopped going through it because we had so many other things to talk about. I'm circling Tulsi here. Sorry. No, I'm forgetting. I do want to talk about Tulsi. What was I talking about right before the Tulsi comment came? I wanted to finish that thought about Iran with their nukes. But just that they know that if America and Israel find out, we'll invade and we'll take out their nuclear program, or we will try to take out their nuclear program. That's why they held off. But as I said, Israel, I think. I know what I was going to say. what I was going to say was, and I said this previous nights, Israel attacked too soon, I think, because Iran did not even say, Iran was not ready to finally finish the nuke. They weren't, from everything we know. Having said that, at some point in the future, we are going to have to worry about Iran, because at some point in the future, Iran will try to build a nuke. I mean, they've already gone most of the way, right? They've already gone most of the way towards building a nuclear weapon. They just haven't finished. At some point, Iran will either need to give up its nuclear ambition, or America and Israel, and maybe Europe as well, will go to war. I say go to war, meaning we'll launch military action to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. As we talked about last night, we can all be in agreement that we'd rather not have, war with Iran. But I think most people agree that if Iran really tried to finish building a nuclear weapon, most people would say that's not acceptable. I will not accept Iran getting nuclear weapons, because the government is so radical and so extreme and so dangerous. That's why I say what's interesting with what Israel did was Israel did it too soon, but it wasn't really unjust what Israel did. The problem was Israel attacked Iran too soon. The problem wasn't that Israel tried to take out Iran's nuclear program, because eventually I think we will have to take out Iran's nuclear program. Now, having said that, an important point that a number of you have mentioned, I see somebody else saying this too, I forgot to mention, Barack Obama had already reached a deal with Iran to constrain their nuclear program. It was in place and doing fine. Donald Trump got rid of it because Donald Trump doesn't like Barack Obama. So Donald Trump, was it 2018 or was it earlier? I'm trying to remember when Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal with Iran. Donald Trump is the reason we're having the crisis right now. Netanyahu as well, because Netanyahu didn't like the nuclear deal either. But it's ironic that that Trump is worried about Iran, but we had a deal in place. So and a couple of weeks ago, Trump made an offer to Iran that many people said was basically, he offered Iran Obama's deal. After killing the deal, 7-8 years ago, Trump turned around and offered Iran the same deal that Obama had, and he killed Obama's deal. So it's like, all right. Anyway. But yeah, that wasn't, Tulsi Gabbard. So this was fascinating. Tulsi Gabbard is in trouble. This is fascinating. Tulsi, our favorite person. So Trump has hired a lot of crazy people in the government. And actually, somebody was mentioning, this is very interesting. Somebody was mentioning earlier that Trump is, and we're already seeing problems crop up. Trump, in order to get elected this time, first time, but this time especially, he wrapped himself in a lot of people that are not just kind of extreme, but some of them are a little crazy. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's a bit cuckoo. A number of, Laura Loomer, who's one of Trump's biggest fans, she's a little bit cuckoo. A number of them are a bit wacky, right? Trump pandered to that sort of extreme side. And part of the extremism was saying, no more wars. America won't get involved in any war. America will stop dealing with the rest of the world. We're no longer going to get it. We don't care what happens, right? And all of a sudden, that's biting him in the butt. Already 4 months into office, Trump is having to consider going to war when Trump had said no more wars, right? Because again, he sort of embraced this actually very liberal view, really. I mean, that's sort of far left liberal, this notion of, kumbaya, we should just let the world go on as it wants. And if bad guys want to do stuff, it's not our job. That's a very liberal view. It's a very far left. I mean, the irony is it's super far left liberal. It's tree hugger view. It's not conservative at all. It's not mainstream, but Trump embraced it. And Trump has been having problems now because he had to embrace so many of the extreme people that now that he's pursuing more mainstream policies, and I say mainstream in the sense that Trump is having to acknowledge that what happens halfway around the world matters, right? It matters what happens halfway around the world. Sometimes military action is necessary. Sometimes what happens in the Middle East matters to American national security. Sometimes we've got to get involved. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is one of the kind of wacky people Trump hired. Hillary Clinton accused her of working for Moscow, basically working for Putin. Many of our allies many people have expressed publicly in the US that they fear Tulsi Gabbard will leak classified information to the Russians. That has been a public fear. She's a top Trump official. A lot of people worry. They do not trust her with American national security. She is Trump's top intelligence official at the White House. She gets all the intelligence from the CIA, the NSA, all the intelligence agencies she gets. That's a problem if you don't trust her. Well, she goes and testifies before Congress in March. And she tells Congress in March that Iran is not any closer to getting a nuclear weapon. Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, meaning they have not moved forward. They've gone to a certain point in 2003 or so. They got to a certain point of preparing to build a nuke, and then they stopped. And she said, the American intelligence community believes that Iran stopped in 2003 and no longer has been trying to build a nuclear weapon since 2003. Trump last night gets asked about it on the plane on Air Force One coming back from Canada. And they asked him, and they literally said, well, Tulsi Gabbard, who works for you in the White House, told Congress 2 months ago that Iran's not a threat. Tulsi Gabbard told Congress that Iran's not building a nuclear weapon. So why did you just threaten Iran and tell them they better stop building nuclear weapons, right? Well, I mean, Trump did some quote to the effect of, well, I don't care what she said. He said, Iran is trying to build a weapon. What happened today? They had the big National Security Council meeting at the White House, the huge meeting at the White House to discuss what to do next. Tulsi wasn't invited. Now, I think mostly she probably wasn't invited because Trump was pissed off that he got embarrassed last night because he got asked. He was literally told, well, your employee, Tulsi Gabbard, testified 2 months ago saying Iran's not a problem, and now you claim it is. No boss wants to hear that because now Trump is going, she embarrassed me, right? I think that's why she's not there. It would be nice if she wasn't there because some of the people in the meeting or some of our allies don't trust her. For example, some people thought that this was evidence that Trump is planning to attack Iran. That basically Trump didn't trust having Tulsi in the meeting, that she would tell someone. So who knows? So there you go. I'm going to put on my glasses and look at something while we're talking. What else, guys? What else? Hold on. I'm looking at this. Hold on. I'm looking at the chat settings. 1 second here. I don't think it lets me do this. 1 second here. Oh, maybe. Oh, I do. All right. Interesting. No, I'm turning it off. All right. I think I turned off the automatic filter. I think I did, but it's hard to say. Let's see what happens. We're trying to get that filter thing off, but I think we got rid of it. We're going to find out. Anyway, what else? What else, guys? I mean, we're going to talk about, obviously, Iran, but what else about Iran and all of this? Now, there's an interesting point. Doug raises a good point I didn't get into. There was an extra reason why Trump left the G8 question early, or the G7 last night in Canada. He did have to get back to the U.S. to deal with Iran. But what's interesting is Zelensky was coming to Canada. Zelensky was coming to the G7. Trump didn't want to see Zelensky. The big issue they were discussing today, the big issue on the agenda was Ukraine. Trump didn't want to discuss Ukraine. He didn't, because he knew, he would be on the spot. So Trump left in part because Trump didn't want to be there because of Ukraine and Zelensky and all of that. But part of it, maybe it's an extra benefit was Trump was able to send a message to Iran going, ruh-roh, this is scary, right? This is scary. He's coming home to discuss you, Iran, right? So TikTokers, make sure you do follow me. Anybody on TikTok? Since we got a lot of people here today. I do this show Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern. We talk about, a lot of times we talk about the war in Ukraine. We also talk about the Trump administration because I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm a political guy, longtime political guy in D.C. But obviously with this war started, we've been talking about Iran because it's such an important issue. What if Russia gives Iran a nuke? They won't. This is something I've said about with regards to Ukraine too. Russia can be very vicious as a country, but their leaders are not dumb. Their leaders are not irrational. Putin is very rational. Putin is very smart. He may make mistakes, but he's very smart. Putin does not want Iran to get a nuclear weapon because Putin is also worried that Iran is not exactly the most stable, smart kind of government, So no. I do not see any chance of Putin giving Iran a nuclear weapon. No. Well, and Putin, at least the Russians say they want Iran to comply, right, with the nuclear agreements. The Russians are at risk too, because Iran's Russia's ally right now, but they're kind of a scary government. Even for the Russians, I think, something's supposed to happen tonight. Not necessarily, although we're getting to the point when things often do happen. 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning is often when attacks happen. I forget how many hours ahead. Alexa, what time is it in Iran? Alexa, what time is it in Iran?
In Iran, it's 2:38 a.m.
2:38. So that's right. They're the half hour thing. So they are 5, 6, 7.5 hours ahead of us. Okay. 3 to 4 is when the attacks typically happen. So in the next half hour, the window opens up for when we might attack. It's also possible that we're going to wait a day or two. Thank Manda. Okay. 30 minutes ahead of you, Manana. So it's also possible that that we're going to wait a couple days for more troops to arrive. The Brits may be moving people in. We're moving some boats, some ships in, things like that. I know Pakistan made some comments, but they were kind of stupid. Pakistan said, if Israel nukes Iran, Pakistan will nuke Israel. And it was just like, come on, really? It's like poor little Pakistan was upset that nobody was talking about them. So they thought they would just, no one is talking about Israel nuking Iran. That's just not even on the agenda. And for Pakistan to suggest it was honestly, it looked like Pakistan was like, we need to be pay attention to me, hold on. Oh, what else? I do condemn Russia. Yes, I do. What else we got? About this topic though, we can talk about any of this stuff. India, Pakistan, not much is going on. There isn't much going on with India and Pakistan, really. Hang on a second. Oh, geez. Hold on. There we go. Sorry. Are we safe if we go to war with Iran? It depends who we is. If you're U.S. military, you're not very safe, obviously. Americans are safe. I think Europeans are safe. Thank you, Yalla. Oh, Yalla. That's cute. Yalla. I assume that's what your name is. Maybe not. But hey, Jorge, good to see you. I'm sorry. Once I'm looking here. Yeah, I was just looking here. I was just Googling Russia on Iran's nuclear program. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov recently reaffirmed that Russia, quote, does not want to see Iran acquire nuclear weapons, but believes it has every right to a civilian nuclear program, which, even the U.S. agrees to that. Russia proposed storing or taking excess Iranian enriched uranium and converting it into reactor fuel, a move aimed at limiting Iran's capacity to nuclearize its program. Which actually are things that we probably would not disagree with. But basically it sounds like the Russians, I mean, I knew the Russians agreed with us that they didn't want Iran to get nukes. I don't know to what degree they've been helpful or not. That I don't know. But Iran doesn't, because basically I was doing some research on this last night, and there are legitimate reasons you might want to enrich uranium. That basically, in order to build a nuclear bomb, you have to enrich the uranium, make the uranium really pure. And you need 90% purity for a nuclear bomb. You need, like, I forget the exact 20% or something for doing, for example, medical isotopes, because you can use these isotopes for, I don't know what the hell you use them for in medicine, whether it's for chemotherapy or whatever the hell it is, but there's medical research reasons that you'd use isotopes that you might want enriched uranium. The only thing is, you don't have to enrich the uranium yourself. You can buy it from someone else. Iran can get the uranium from Russia. Right? Radiotherapy, is it radiotherapy? I was wondering about that, Derek. Okay, for cancer, there you go. So that's the problem, is Iran doesn't want to do it that way. Iran says no. Do I think Cyprus is safe? With two bases, are they? I assume they're British bases. What are they? Motivation in Cyprus. I seem to recall Britain. Are they British bases? If they're British bases, the Iranians could attack. I mean, they could try to shoot missiles potentially. I don't know if the Iranian missiles go that far. They probably do. Because they're able to hit Israel. Cyprus is farther, but not. I don't know though. They're British. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether how much farther they are from from the coast there. But Iran could go after them. Yeah. Okay. Akhwatiri and Dehelia. Okay. Or Dehelia. 3.3 to 5% enrichment needed for energy. 2,000 miles. And what's the distance on the Iranian? The Iranian missiles. Let me pull this up again. What is the farthest range of Iranian missiles, and can they hit Cyprus? Might as well ask ChatGPT. Hang on here. Iran possesses longest range reaching 2,500 kilometers, 1,500 miles. Cyprus lies 1,600 to 1,900 kilometers. Yes, several of them can reach Cyprus without difficulty. Okay, so they could. Yes. The question becomes, I don't know where is easier to hit. My suspicion is going all the way to Cyprus might, a couple things. One, attacking Cyprus starts to get a little, I don't know. I think it starts to get a little riskier. Like Iran had talked about going after U.S. bases in the Middle East, going after the other Arab countries, which I think Iran would rather go after another Arab country than go after Cyprus. But right, Cyprus is EU, but not NATO. Correct. How many people does Iran want to be fighting Israel? I don't know what that means, Guy Vancouver. How many people does Iran want to be fighting Israel, U.S.? Oh. How many people do they want to be fighting? I see what you mean. Yeah, but the only meaning, so I think what the person was saying was, it depends how many people Iran wants to be fighting. Do they really want to attack the Brits too? The only thing is, if America attacks Iran, the Brits are probably going to help us. So if the Brits are helping us, they're already part of. Now, having said that, if the Brits are already part of it, do they want to, will they do even more if Iran hits them back? Maybe. But, if the Brits are already helping, Iran might go after them. They might. Is the U.S. getting involved? Is that your question, Georgia? That's what we've been talking about tonight. I mean, the big issue is the U.S. is closer today than we were yesterday to getting involved militarily. Yes. But Trump has not. I think Trump is trying to scare Iran into not just negotiating, but caving in the negotiations, to agreeing to get rid of their uranium enrichment program. And he's doing it by putting pressure on them, by making them think we're going to go to war. The only problem is, I think we have to go to war if we're going to threaten war. Otherwise, you have to go to war if you're going to threaten war and the threat pans out. Meaning, you tell Iran, if you don't concede in the negotiations, we will take out your plant itself. If Iran then doesn't concede and say, okay, we give in, we're not going to enrich uranium, then the U.S. had said we were going to bomb. If we don't bomb, then we look weak. And then it sends a message to China and Russia and everybody else that if the U.S. threatens you, don't listen to them. So I think Trump is legitimately planning to attack Iran if Iran does not concede and give up its nuclear program. I think so. Are people in the U.S. safe? Relatively. I mean, it's like anyone in the world. We're relatively safe. Iran will try to commit acts of terror and other things, which they're famous for. Will they get away with it? Who knows? Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Ellie. That's exactly it. Carol says Taiwan is in serious trouble if the taco backs off. That's the issue. Yeah. Yeah. That basically if Trump threatens Iran and doesn't follow through, assuming Iran doesn't agree to Trump's terms, then China's going to look at this and say, don't believe Trump when he threatens China over Taiwan. Thank you, Randy. Now, what about North Korea? North Korea has been pretty quiet about this, to be honest. Thank you, Sarah, or Sari, for the gift. How likely is regime change? Who knows? But I really mean that. Typically, regime change is not easy. Having said that, some of the folks who covered Syria said, regime change in Syria was never going to happen until it happened. And then when it happened like this, like in a matter of weeks. So, because recently the Syrian dictator got overthrown, his family was in power for 50 years. And they were never going to get overthrown, and then they were overthrown. Soviet Union was in power for 70 years, and then they disappeared. Russia's still there, still a problem, but the Soviets are gone. I don't think we should just assume that the Iranian government, the Iranian dictatorship will always be in power. But at the same time, we also shouldn't assume that if we cause enough damage, that people will just overthrow the government. Maybe, but the government's very good. Dictators are very good at keeping themselves in power. They kill people, basically. Iran has killed up to, depending who you talk to, but up to 30,000 political prisoners have been killed by the Iranian government. Does Iran have any serious allies? The Russians, really? I mean, China, but I would say Russia, probably their biggest ally. Beyond that, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah, the terrorist group in Lebanon, Hamas, the terrorist group in Gaza, maybe. So, no, it is impressive. Whether you think it's good or not, but Ofri says how impressive what Israel managed to achieve in 5 days. Israel has been, this has been quite, it's been quite impressive what Israel pulled off, whether you like it or not. But the way they infiltrated Iran, they've, taking out the leadership, the military leadership, it's been very impressive. The Pakistan stuff we talked about earlier, Tom, Pakistan's just being silly. Israel's not going to use nukes. Does Iran have anyone legitimately ready to step in if the regime fails? Who knows? Christian Amanpour was talking about the Shah's son. I don't know to what degree Iranians, as an outsider, the idea of the Shah's son taking over strikes me a bit oddly, just because the Shah himself was a dictator, right? So I don't know if we have any Iranians with us today or Persians with us. It's a little weird, but what is the perception of him inside Iran? I don't know. I know he's ready to step in, but how do the Iranians feel about him? Let me ask this. Let me try this. How do the Iranian people feel about the Shah's son, and whether he would be good to take over if they overthrow the government? Hold on. And now I've got to change Shah to Shah. He's not Reza, is he, as well? Pahlavi? But I'd be kind of curious about this. The Saudis do not love Iran. Michael's asking how the Saudis feel about Iran. I don't think they love Iran. This is ChatGPT. ChatGPT says limited support inside Iran. Thank you, Russell, for the gift. Many Iranians view Pahlavi. He is Reza. That's what I thought. Reza Pahlavi. Many Iranians view Pahlavi as a foreign-linked figure. Protesters chanting monarchist during the protests, especially in 2017-18, Crowds have chanted for the Shah and his son, indicating emotional nostalgia for the era. Generational divide, while a surge of youthful disillusionment with theocratic rule has made Pahlavi's name more audible, experts warn that restoring monarchy is unlikely, with voters favoring democratic systems. A 2022 survey showed 64% had a positive view of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi was preferred by 39% of Iranians when asked who they supported in hypothetical elections. That's interesting. I mean, some of the polls show him with strong support. It's interesting. It's interesting. Now, that's an interesting point. He could be a transitional leader. It could be somebody to step in to unify the country. The only thing is, again, his father was still kind of a dictator. So it's a little weird. You know, I mean, it's a little weird. Then again, look who's running Syria right now, right? You know, I mean, it's already 7:22. I'm going to go shortly, guys, just because, again, I actually finally have my voice appointment tomorrow with the ENT to find out if this is allergies or what, because my voice is still a bit off tonight. So I'm trying not to push it too much. So another minute or two, and then I'm going to go. Does Iran have missiles that can reach the U.S.? No. They cannot put a nuke on it yet. No. If Iran cannot build a nuclear weapon yet to start with, but also they do not have the delivery system. They don't have a missile that can fit or whatever, carry a nuclear weapon. Or they've not figured out how to put the two together. So no. Am I a Republican or a Democrat? I'm not a Republican. I was a Republican years ago, actually. But I am not a fan of today's Republican Party in America. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. We could go on about it, but you know, I think Democrats are the safer option, even though Democrats drive me crazy sometimes. The Republicans, I think, have gone off the deep end. So, yeah, but I was a Republican like 30 years ago. So can Iran attack our bases? Yes, they can. They have missiles that can reach our bases. Yes. JD Vance is, I don't think, a very credible human being. Keep in mind, JD Vance was like the left-wing liberal, and then he decided to run for president and became MAGA or conservative. And it was like, JD Vance, a couple of years ago, compared Donald Trump to that German leader from World War II. He called them America's H man, right? H, you know the spelling of the rest of the name. And then 2 years later, he's running for Congress for the Senate and is supporting Donald Trump. And it's like, dude, you literally called Trump the H man from World War II 2 years ago, and now you're running for Senate and embracing him? Nobody does that. JD Vance is too much of a hypocrite. I mean, way beyond normal political hypocrisy, JD Vance. I mean, politicians may lie and change their mind. JD Vance is on another planet. And then Trump picks him anyway, which fascinates me. I mean, imagine somebody called you the H man of Germany in World War II, and you pick him as your vice president. Man. Anyway. All right. I did vote for Reagan. My first election, I voted for Reagan. 1984. So you never know. And it's funny, looking back, did I vote for Bush? I did. I voted for Bush in 98. 88, I voted for Bush. 92, I voted for Clinton. And then we're going to stop after that. But yes. So, all right, guys. All right. We're not going to have a draft. We don't need a draft. America has a big military. We're fine. I mean, that's one advantage. We have a very good volunteer military. Are we going to war? I'm going to call it quits now. Do follow me on TikTok. Do follow me on YouTube. Thanks for the gifts, guys. Final point. As I said earlier, we are closer to military action against Iran today than we were yesterday. Is Donald Trump trying to scare Iran into giving up its nuclear program? Yes. Is Donald Trump trying to convince Iran, oh boy, we're bringing all this military to the Middle East. We're bringing in an aircraft carrier. We're bringing in refueling planes for B-2 bombers. We're bringing in British troops so we can blow you up. Is he doing that to scare the Iranians into caving and giving up their nuclear program in the negotiations? Yes. If the Iranians say, screw you, Donald Trump, thank you, Blue Ariel, we're not going to cave. We're not going to give up our nuclear program. Give us your best. Is Trump going to say, oh, well, I tried and go home and not follow through with military action? I don't think so. I think a couple days ago, it might have been a bluff. I think Trump now is pissed. And I think Trump is going to go after the nuclear program. I do. I think things have shifted. I'm not sure why they shifted, but I think in the last couple days, we shifted from Trump kind of going, all right, Israel kind of annoyed me. I wish they didn't do this, but I kind of like them this is Trump, right? I think Trump kind of liked Israel attacking because Trump likes Israel and Trump doesn't like Iran. But at the same time, thinking this is a headache. I wanted a negotiation. But I think at the same time, either Iran or someone has gotten to Trump, Netanyahu, but it's not just Netanyahu. I think someone Trump trusts probably supports going after Iran. That's my guess. Thank you, Janice. And they've convinced Trump that maybe he does need to go after Iran and try to take out their nuclear program. I think so. Thank you for the B there, Scully. All right, guys, have a good night. If something breaks, literally, I will come on again, obviously, if the U.S. goes to war. But thank you, Jen. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Eastern. Thank you for joining us, TikTok, YouTube, Discord. Sorry, things got a little slow tonight. Still annoyed about my computer. I don't know, CST, I don't remember if it was him or who. I'm going to have to reach out and maybe get those suggestions for it may be time to get the new Mac. I'm kind of bummed, though, but my Mac is getting really slow, which I'm not happy about. So, all right. Have a good night, guys. Discord, I'm going to sign off on you first. Oops. All right. Oop, hang on. Where is this? Oh, you got to be in Chicago time? That's funny. Oops. Where is this? Trying to find my close button on Discord. There it is. Okay. Bye, Discord. All right. That's off. Good. All right. YouTube. Good night, YouTube.